Hello, and welcome to another program with Pastor Frank Lewis. And I'm talking today about why there are so many adults that are emotionally wounded, and they're passing on to their children their emotional woundedness. And I'm going to talk about a little different aspect today, and that aspect is the cultural environment and the societal pressures that are on adults and children today. And we're going to look into that with some depth. And so we're going to need to realize that mothers and fathers are going to have a much more difficult time at this time, and this stage of life, as it is right now, because there are things happening today that weren't happening decades ago. There are things, there wasn't a social media. There wasn't all the pressures that we have today to be seen, to be looked at, and this whole thing that happens on social media and in every area, because it's coming and supported by advertising, it's supported by social media, and it's become a problem, a major problem, and created a Me Too generation. It's all about me. Well, you realize that it was all about Satan, and that's why he got kicked out of heaven. And so what we're really viewing and what I'm sharing with you today is really being satanically influenced by the followers of Satan who are trying to cause more emotional woundedness, because if a person is emotionally wounded, they're not going to have a great spiritual life. They're not going to have trust in God. It's just not going to happen. And so what happens today is that I'm going to share with you some of these pressures. I'm going to share with you so you know what's happening. Because if you know what's happening, you can do something about it. And, you know, the word says, my people perish for a lack of knowledge. And so I don't want that to happen to you. I really don't. And so that's why I'm doing this program today, to help you have a much better understanding about what is actually happening in our world today and why it's happening, but most importantly, what are the effects on parents and children. And so we're going to really look into this, and it's going to be very, very helpful to you, because Satan has got an absolute attack, and there's an assault on through this culture and through the society on families. The biggest problem, one of the big problems actually, is the breakdown of the family. But I'm not going to get into that right this minute. I am going to tell you first of all about the book I wrote. The book I wrote is called The Key, and the key is actually the key to emotional healing. You see, with all these societal and cultural pressures, if you don't get emotional healing, you're not going to be able to raise emotionally healthy children. And God has given you an assignment, parents, to be able to represent Him to your children. Well, if you're not going to represent Him well, that's going to be a problem for your children. You're not going to raise emotionally healthy children. You won't raise children in the nurture and admonition of the Lord, so that when they're old, they won't depart from it. You won't be able to do that. Society and the cultural pressures and the plans of the devil will actually overrun and override what you're trying to do if you're not emotionally healed, or at least partially, or on your way to emotional healing. And so that's why I wrote the book. It's the key to emotional healing. I also have a YouTube channel I'd like you to check out. It is actually called At Fortifying Families, because Fortifying Families is what I'm doing here with these two books that I have. And you're going to be able to find out what a great marriage is like through 21 videos I have under the Fortifying Families 4. At Fortifying Families 4. Reason it has to be that way is because somebody else had the name Fortifying Families for their YouTube channel. So you look at those 21 videos, you can look at the 7 to 8 videos that I have for parents, and we'll get started here looking at what's happened, what's going on. Satan is attacking, and he's attacking very, very hard the family structure. And so it's really going to be a problem because we're not developing children with character. We're developing children, or children are being developed, if you will, with social media into being seen, into being having their value actually based on being seen, getting likes, being admired, instead of being real. And that's and authentic. And that's not going to work well. That is actually going to cause more emotional wounding. As they, when I raised my kids, I raised them to be the best they could be. I raised them to actually really tried to get them to perform. And I thought it was a good idea. My wife and I thought it was a good idea. But guess what? It built independent children. It built children, my children, if you will, and maybe your children, probably your children, that actually become self-serving. They become actually worshiping themselves. They don't really look at, their pain and try to process it. They just hide it, put it away, and that's going to cause real problems. So they're detached from humility and empathy in many cases because they're spending so much time trying to be seen and validated and approved and get attention. That's what they're all about. So they lack empathy, and they, it's kind of like that's the soil that narcissism is rooted in, and so their self-worth is really a problem. And like I said before, it's what got kicked Satan. It's what the self-worth problem, or the self-worship, if you will. That's what I meant to say. It's the self-worship problem got Satan kicked out of heaven, and that's not good. But he's on the earth, and he's the God of this world, and he is doing as the best he can to break down the family, and social media, and all the entertainment, advertising, all do what? They point us and they drive us, if you will, subliminally, to the Me Too generation, to being seen instead of really being real. And that's not good. So we become our own truth. We are the people that are affected by culture and by the societal influences actually believe that they deserve more. They believe that what they do is much more important than who they are, and their worth is in being seen. And so they have a self-focus. They're self-reliant. They end up emotionally, detached and emotionally hollow. They're looking at, kind of really looking at themselves instead of, being able to relate with others. I want to tell you, children today are being absolutely affected by phones and devices that allows them to play in this technological creation of these games, and they're getting shut down. They're actually not being able to develop relationships with their parents, and the parents use it for babysitting. They use it to keep their kids off to the side, and that's causing problems. And the children are being raised with a competition, and I got to be the best, and I got to be independent, because that's how the games are structured. And I'm sure that Satan structures those games with his followers, and so the children lose their identity. They don't have any kind of very little relationship with even some of their friends. Because I've seen kids, and what they do, young kids, 10, 12, 14, and what they do is they're on their phones rather than talk. They actually spend more time on their phones rather than talk. So what is the real root of the Me Too generation? What is the real root of the problems that we're facing today in society and with culture? And it is that the breakdown of the family. And so it's really a problem, and it's a problem that we need to address, because the family was a place of safety, supposed to be a place of safety. Maybe it's not a place of safety, but it was supposed to be a place of safety. There was supposed to be communication between fathers and mothers and children, and there was sitting around the dinner table talking about things. Very few parents actually eat dinner with their children. Very few parents actually talk to their children. They certainly don't listen to them. And so the real problem is that the society we live in is you got to always be on. You always got to be performing. You always got to be achieving and striving and for success. And so we've forgotten because of this pressure to be the best and to be seen, and we just don't. We do life, but we don't feel life. We don't take the time to slow down. There's not a lot of rest. Everybody's going 90 miles an hour. And I got to tell you, that's easily done. We take on too much, and we don't spend enough time with our children. So emotional needs are not listened to, heard, and validated and loved by parents. And so the children end up with not being who God created them to be. They end up being wounded. And the whole thing I'm talking to you about today is why. Why is it so prevalent today, emotionally wounded fathers and mothers and emotionally wounded children? And it's because the society we live in and the culture we live in is moving too fast for us to be able to handle it. God didn't create us with our hearts to be able to handle the speed at which life is moving today. And so we end up with serious problems. Now, right now, I want to take a few minutes and dive in a little deeper as to why so many adults and children are emotionally wounded, more specifically. And it's because like I said, the family has been broken down. And that was always the plan of Satan, was to attack the family. Because if he can attack the family and separate the fathers and mothers from their children, or get the children to not get what they needed, what God created them to have, then Satan's going to win, and it becomes, a real problem. Because then there's divorce, and there's absent fathers, and there's lots of problems for children that children are facing today. And so children are raised in dysfunctional families. There may be abuse, there may be emotional neglect, and so they have pain. They have internalized pain, and they don't just internalize the pain, they actually become the pain. And so adults from dysfunctional families actually fear intimacy. They're many times people-pleasing. They have anxiety or perfection. They're fearful. or they're trying to be perfect. They're setting, standards for themselves that are unreachable. That's a perfectionism. And they have chronic shame, and they're emotionally numb many times. So what happens to the kids? The kids are wounded, and the results are that they pass on this pain. The parents pass on the pain to the children. The children know when parents are emotionally wounded. The children know when they're not getting loved. And when they're not getting loved, it changes them. They have to be loved. They have to be accepted. They have to be approved. They have to be listened to and heard. And if they're not listened to and heard, they're just going to take their emotions and they're going to take them inside and they're going to push them down. So we have a cycle of woundedness, and we have parenting because of what parents have experienced. The parents are wounded, so now the children are becoming wounded, and we just keep the thing going over and over and over again, and that's not what God intended. That's why I'm doing this whole program, and why I'm writing these books, is to help parents to know how to raise healthy children. So we end up shutting children down. Parents shut children down. They sometimes say to them, stop crying, or I'll give you something to cry about. And that's not going to help the children. They need to be able to express their emotions. So they hide their emotions instead, and they end up getting those emotions are buried and they're repressed, but they're still dry. They're still there, and that pain is still driving children, and it's coming in a way that is not going to be helpful to the children. Adults that can't name their pain, they can't identify their pain, they don't express their pain. And if they don't express their pain, what's going to happen is they are actually going to project it onto the kids, onto their children. And that's not what we want. And so in this culture, what happens is that children are lonely and they're disconnected from reality. They play these games and that's their connection. They, just don't have a way to connect emotionally. And so they're living in trauma. In fact, this culture has a lot of trauma in it. We don't know about what tomorrow's going to hold. We don't know that there could be wars. There could be World War III. There could be nuclear war. There could, the people are losing their jobs. It's a hard place to raise children when the parents are in pain because it's uncertain. They don't know what's going to happen. It's unpredictable. Everything is upside down right now. Satan has made it that way, and it's a problem because trauma in children is invisible. You can't see it. So they live in anxiety and depression. It's epidemic. It's epidemic with parents and it's epidemic with children. It's really a problem for the Gen Alpha and Gen Z children. There's no question about it. And this culture and this society rewards children and their parents, but particularly the children. They rewards them for image and not authenticity. Authenticity is a rare find today. Children believe their value is based upon what they look like, what they feel like, their beauty. It's based on everything but who they are. They're not loved for who they are, so they don't really have a value for who they are. They don't get a validation in listening to and mirroring or being heard. Their self-image is more external, and they're not getting what they need, so they don't have a real value for internal values. They just don't have them. And so they end up being unseen and unloved. Emotional pain comes from lack of being able to perform, or if they do perform, they're performing for their parents so that they can get accepted and approved, but it really doesn't build their internalized self-image. They have a they are really disconnected. But really what it comes down to is they're disconnected from God and their spiritual identity. They don't have a good spiritual identity because their parents have not had a good spiritual identity. But more importantly, society is not churches are not giving them what they need. They don't have a place to belong. The family has been disconnected. There's not extended family to help them. They don't even have adults to go to talk about their problems, talk about what they're dealing with. They don't have safe adults because the family has been torn down, and that's really a sad situation. And so they don't know who they are. Children don't know who they are, and they don't know how to get the void filled that's not being filled with love, acceptance, and approval by their parents. So the result is that they are starving for meaning. Children are starving for meaning. I believe the Gen Z and the Gen Alpha children are starving for meaning. They really want to be loved, accepted, and approved, but when their parents can't do that, then they get afraid. They end up with fear instead of faith. They don't. Their love of the parents is conditional, but they still look to the world they live in for validation, because it's the me too. It's not internalized, it's external. And so what happens is they don't get the spiritual connection that they need to be loved, and so the void doesn't get filled. They end up with problems with being known by their parents. Their bodies are filled with fear and anxiety and stress. Their parents are also fearful because of the days we live in, and that it's passed on to the children. And so what do? Well, they play games, they smoke weed, or they something to escape. And so they've lost connection. And we've lost connection, and because of the society, there's not loving communities. There's not a opportunity for connection. It's just a situation where children are not getting what they need in order to be able to be healthy children. And so without a place to belong, they don't get a chance to really have that sense of safety. And so the pain multiplies. And they don't, what's happened today is people don't know how to be together. They don't know how to be in community. They don't know how to be able to share in community and be loved in community, accepted in community, and validated in community. And so this is a new day. This is a new day. Parents are facing reality, societal pressures, and cultural realities that are absolutely shaping their children, and they're not really knowing what's happening. So why have I been talking to you about this today? What is it that I want you to know? Well, I want you to know that cultural Satan is moving this culture through his followers, through his Satan worshipers, through Luciferian worshipers. He's moving the culture in a way to be able to cause more emotional woundedness than in past decades and in past generations. That's why there's more emotional woundedness, there's more anger in fathers and mothers, there's more, like I talked about weeks ago, there's mothers and fathers are more shut down than they've been because Satan is doing a good job of really affecting culture and society in the way that he has. So why am I doing this today? I'm doing this today so you can know the truth, because the truth will set you free. I'm doing this today so that you better understand what your children are going through, what the attack of Satan is, because once you know what the attack of Satan is, then you can do something about it. And you can really know how to be able to help your children walk through this whole problem of society and culture that Satan has brought on, and you can have your children know, and you can help your children to be able to navigate through the societal pressures and culture. I don't think it's a good idea to leave your children with devices that are going to babysit them. I think it's a much better idea that you listen to your children, you hear your children by reflecting back. I've talked about this before. And you validate your children and affirm them. Because when you do that, when you listen to them, when you care about them, when you're there with them, when they're being able to be loved and accepted for who they are, not what they do, it's going to come against this Me Too generation, and you're going to be able to raise more healthy children. When you do this, God will be pleased, and you'll be pleased because your children won't have to go through all that you went through. You won't raise them the way you were raised, and you will help them fight off this culture that is so problematic, so causing so many problems for Gen Z and Gen Alpha. And I want you to know God wants you to do a better job.